And we are live. Welcome to this week's Ask Schellie segment. My name is Schellie Fanfan. I am your emotional intelligence expert. I am the CEO and founder of Ask Schellie Consulting LLC, where we take corporations and other business entities to their next level. We help them to achieve peak performance through the provision of psychoeducation. I'm a licensed psychotherapist here in the state of Florida, and I have the privilege of partnering with individuals and families and married couples and seriously dating couples, groups, in providing psychotherapeutic interventions to help them achieve the best versions of themselves, to help them achieve emotional injury and overall breakthrough. I love what I do. I am walking in purpose, and I encourage all of you to assure that in everything that you do in life, that your goal is to walk in that purpose. It blows doors wide open that no man can shut. It'll close doors that no man can open. Provision comes after you make the decision to walk in your life's calling. So as a psychotherapist, something that I explain very often every week is that people have a lot of questions about humans, how they think the way that they think, why they do the way that they do, how we react and respond the way that we do. And so last August, I believe, I decided, you know what, I am going to start taking these questions and just highlighting them weekly on this platform. And that is what I do. Every Tuesday at 12, I will share a question with all of you, and you guys become a part of my consultation team. So I need you to comment, because when the listener is tuning in, when the writer is tuning in, that writer or those writers will have an opportunity to hear not only what I have to say, but what you have to say. So the person will be able to go into to the feed and see the comments, see the questions, see all the feedback. So please feel free to play a part, engage in this discussion. You can do so by going into the comment section, comment. Again, you guys are all a part of my consultation team. I appreciate your shares. This is how we assure that this information falls within the line of sight and ear gates of someone who needs to hear it. You never know who will hear this message at the right time. All of us need tools for our wellness toolbox. All of us need tools for our wellness toolbox. So your share gives people the opportunity to hear the information and add it to their wellness toolbox. So are we ready for this week's Ask Schellie question? Remember, I need your feedback. Thank you. Hello, Azam. Hello, Physical West Orlando. Ronald Frank here on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to jump into our question for today. And again, please make sure that you comment, that you provide your feedback as well. So here we go. This week's Ask Schellie question. And it reads, Dear Ask Schellie, I do not want to stir any more emotions than this world is already experiencing at this time, but I am really needing some help. I am a white woman living in the Orlando area. I am trying to find the best way to address the anger of my Black friends. I want to help march, peacefully protest. I want to understand more and do whatever I can do to be a part of the solution. But the responses I often get are very strong emotions that make me feel like somehow I am the problem. I hate feeling this way. Sometimes all I can do is listen because I feel like if I say something wrong, it will make things worse. So I walk on pins and needles, hoping I can find the right words to express how bad I feel. It is not fair. I am hurting too. Sometimes I feel I am being blamed. What is the best way for me to handle the anger coming my way for being white in America today? Wow. That's a pretty deep one. Let me know what you think. Put your comments in the comment section. I need your consultation. I need your expertise, your excellence, your intelligence here. We are all intelligence experts, okay? So I'm going to repeat the question. For those of you who are just logging on, I just read the question from our writer. She is a Caucasian female who feels that she is being blamed for the experience of America today. And so I'm going to repeat her question. In the meantime, I want you to go ahead and get your responses prepared and put your comments in. Put your comments in the comment section of this live. Remember, the writer will come back. First of all, the writer could be listening right now. And so whether the person is listening or whether they're going to come back and listen to the playback, your comments are valuable. So here we go. Dear Ask Schellie, I do not want to stir any more emotions than this world is already experiencing at this time, but I am really needing some help. I am a white woman living in the Orlando area. I am trying to find the best way to address the anger of my Black friends. I want to help, march, peacefully protest. I want to understand more and do whatever I can to be a part of the solution. But the responses I often get are very strong emotions that make me feel like somehow I am the problem. I hate feeling this way. Sometimes all I can do is listen because I feel like if I say something wrong, it will make things worse. So I walk on pins and needles, hoping I can find the right words to express how bad I feel. It is not fair. I am hurting too. Sometimes I feel I am being blamed. What is the best way for me to handle the anger coming my way for being white in America today? I love your responses. So here we go. Here we go. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the different coping styles that we talked about last week. I want to make sure that we go over that because I think it's going to help in this conversation. So again, for those of you who are just logging in, this is a question from a Caucasian female who is saying, I feel like I'm being blamed. I just want to help, but I'm getting all of this anger from my Black friends, right? And so let's talk about coping styles one more time, because we are in a climate where we are processing a lot of extreme emotions. So you were right, writer, when you indicated that there's so many emotions going on worldwide. I don't want to add fuel to the fire. And you're right, there are a lot of emotions. Some of us are overwhelmed. And for those of us who are not overwhelmed, are saturated, right, with emotions, whether it be anger, fear, frustration, love, hate, betrayal, so many emotions. And not only are we experiencing these emotions, we are rapid cycling from different emotional states. Rapid cycling. That means you go from one emotional state to another emotional state. Some of us are cycling not as rapid as others. Some will say like every other hour, I feel like I'm experiencing another emotion. Or right when I feel like I've achieved some regulation and some balance, I will see something on the news or I will read a social media post and I'll go back to that state that I was relieved from. So we are all experiencing extreme emotions. We're experiencing cycling through these moods and through these different emotional states. Some of us are channeling these emotions in a very healthy way. Some of us are channeling it in a not so healthy way. Some of us are channeling it in a progressive and productive way. Some of us not so productive. So let's go over those coping styles very, very quickly. And we'll jump into the question. And I'd like you guys to share, how should someone who is trying to help and be a support to a Black friend, right, how they should deal with the backlash that they're feeling, this displaced anger. We're going to talk about displaced anger in a second. So there are many ways to cope, but I think we address maybe 5 last time. So I'm going to condense it to 3 main ways that people kind of cope through circumstances that provoke extreme emotion, like what we are dealing with today. So the first one is going to be the 3 A's today: avoidance, aggression, and action. Avoidance, aggression, and action. In avoidance, there are 3 types of avoidance, okay? 3 types of avoidance. The first one is denial. This is when a person does not accept the truth for what it is. They honestly don't accept the truth for what it is. Because if they accept the truth for what it is, there's a call to action they may not be ready to do. So they deny it as truth. Sometimes they will use statistics and mathematics to prove that this doesn't exist. This truth that people are declaring is truth is really not true because of this study and this statistics that say that this or whatever. But they just are in this place where they are denying the truth because the acceptance of the truth would create greater distress than just denying that it exists. That is denial. Another form of avoidance are for those who do know the truth. They are very well aware of the truth, but dealing with the truth or having an inability, not having the capacity to deal with that truth, just escape and avoid. Whether it's, I'm going to act like it's not here, I'm just going to keep moving. Whether I'm going to alter my emotional state by drinking or getting high during this season so I don't have to deal with these extreme emotions. So we have people who escape, avoid. They just unplug. They just unplug from the rest of the world because they don't have, either they don't have the capacity to cope or are choosing not to. Because some of us have the capacity. We are royalty. We have that power and we have that authority. So a lot of the times we just need to be reminded of the royalty and the authority that we do have. The third type of avoidance is somewhat of a healthy avoidance. This is individuals who say, I recognize the truth. I know that it's there. This is very overwhelming for me. I'm not well. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give myself 3 shifts during the day, right? I'm going to give 5 or 10 minutes of the news in the morning. I'll give myself some media time in the afternoon. In the evening, I'll do a 12 to 15 minute just catch up so I can stay aware but not consumed, right? I'll stay aware but not consumed. So this is a healthy type of avoidance because the person is still giving themselves an opportunity to engage. Okay, so that's avoidance. We have denial, we have escape avoidance. I'm going to get high and stay drunk because I can't handle all that's going on. And healthy avoidance, which is I'm just going to I'm going to pace myself. I will avoid, but make sure that I re-engage when it's time for me to re-engage. The second is aggression. And I think a lot of what this writer is talking about that she's experiencing are those who channel their extreme emotions through aggression. That aggression could be verbal aggression, right? So you're using emotionally charged language in your posts, emotionally charged language when you are interacting with people, right? This is when you are experiencing anger or frustration and you are distressing, right? You are relieving that distress through aggression. That aggression can also be physical. It could be through property disturbance. It could be through fighting. It could be through rioting, right? So these are all ways that people sometimes channel that anger and that discomfort and those extreme emotions through aggression. And so this writer is getting a whole lot of verbal aggression from her friends. And she's like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to help. And now I'm feeling like I'm the problem. How did this happen? How did I get to this space where I'm calling you to offer help? And I'm being, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're accusing her of being racist, whatever it is. It's causing her to write in for help, saying, how can I communicate with my angry Black friends? And then we have individuals who are very action oriented. And in their action orientation, they are providing support. They're providing support to movements. They want to support. And sometimes in their support, they may ignore their own emotional cycling, their own emotional experience. But this is how they are choosing to relieve themselves of this distress, this global distress that we're all experiencing. And if they're not supporting, just some type of action action-oriented response to the emotions, whether you are starting a peaceful protest, participating in a peaceful protest, you're doing lives, you're having the conversation, you're hosting forums in which we can have this courageous conversation, you are being a part of the solution, you want to run for office, you're finding out how to get involved with your local government. This is being action-oriented. So we're seeing the 3 A's: avoidance, aggression, and action. And so it's important for us to understand this, because we cannot overcome what we do not understand. We cannot overcome what we do not understand. And so it's important to acknowledge those extreme emotions, to acknowledge that these are not just people who are just angry and aggressive and want to hurt others, but there is a channeling, there is a coping that's happening. We are using learned behavior. We're using learned behavior to channel. We're using whatever coping mechanisms have been successful in the past, whether they're healthy or not. People are just coping the best way that they know how. Now, am I saying that this white woman should accept being called out of her name, insulted, or degraded? Well, absolutely not. At that particular point, I would encourage you to be assertive and to assure that you are verbalizing, what you're expecting in that exchange. Like, I expect this to be a respectful conversation. I don't appreciate being called Karen, or I don't appreciate being called cracker, or whatever it is. I think it's important that you don't just accept the aggression in a way that you will allow people to insult you. Use your words, use your assertiveness skills. And if you're having some issues with being assertive, feel free to contact me at info@askschellie.com, right? So that you can strengthen those assertive skills, right? So I'm saying, whether you choose to give grace to your Black friends who are angry, if you're choosing to give them that grace because you are understanding that not only are we angry, we are channeling generations and generations and generations of anger and frustration, and we have felt that we've exhausted every tone of voice. Many are tired, many are still on the progressive side. We are talking about, listen, there was a time when in the Constitution, a Black person was counted as 3/5 of a person. 3/5 of we were counted as 60% of a person. And while some may say, well, that was back then and here we are now, while the Constitution doesn't necessarily say that we're 3/5 of a person, there's a lot of our experiences that cause us to feel that way. And so again, generations and generations, centuries and centuries of being in this climate and being told that it doesn't exist. Yes, there's anger. Yes, there is frustration. And so, no, don't accept being called out your name or being insulted, but it's important that you truly understand it. For example, Ryder, you talked about how bad you feel. Let's talk about that for a second. You said how bad you feel. We don't need sympathy at this time, because sympathy is rooted in an emotion, and emotions die out after time. None of what we are doing right now should be just emotionally provoked, because if that is the case, what will happen is in 2 or 3 months, and sometimes even sooner, then the energy will start to die down, will start to dwindle. The loudness of our voice will be weakened. And so it is important for us to assure that we're just not operating on emotion. We don't need your sympathy. What we need is your empathy. We need you to understand. We need you to not tell us that race doesn't exist. That's like talking about the sky. You may choose to believe that the sky isn't there. But guess what? The sky will exist and does exist whether you acknowledge it or not. And so we don't need sympathy. We need empathy. Empathy is understanding, and you cannot change without understanding, because understanding brings about awareness. Awareness is key for change to happen. You cannot elevate, you cannot break through without understanding. That's why a lot of people, they get stuck because they want to change, but they truly don't understand. They don't understand why they respond to men the way they do. With men not understanding why you choose the women that you choose, not understanding why you respond that way. Why don't you trust people? Why are you so jealous? You know, we can go on and on and on. We can go on and on and on, okay? But the bottom line is this: we have to be able to understand, because you cannot overcome what you do not understand. So thank you for your sympathy. Don't want it, but we would love your empathy. We would love your understanding. We would love for you to do your research. We would love for you to do whatever you need to do to enhance your awareness and your understanding, okay? Let's talk about displaced anger for a second. And I kind of got thrown off for a moment because I see here that we have a guest that's going to be joining us soon. I want to talk about displaced anger for a second. Hi, Bree. Hello, Marjorie. Thank you, TJ Legacy, for always tuning in. Let's see. Endless Events, DD, Nikki G. Hello. Hi, Donna. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Okay, so displaced anger is this. Displaced anger is when you have an extreme response or reaction to some type of trigger, and you are choosing, whether you're doing it consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously, dumping that anger, but relieving yourself of that distress by dumping it on someone that is not related to the problem. That is not related to whatever the circumstance was that caused you to respond or feel this way, right? That's displaced anger. Most of the time, we are displacing our anger on people that are closest to us. We are displacing anger on those where it's the safest place to do so, right? Which again goes back to it being the people that are closest to us. And it's also, and we also tend to displace on people or things that, or in this particular case, we're talking about people. We're displacing, we can displace our anger on people that have similar characteristics to that situation or that person that caused or was a trigger to this extreme emotion. Right? So those of us who are really frustrated and angry at white America right now, then yes, there may be some displaced anger on the face that looks like whatever white America looks like to you, whatever white America looks like to the person who's experiencing that extreme emotion, that we may see some displaced anger there. Now, is it right? I'm not saying it's right. What I'm saying is that, again, we cannot overcome what we do not understand. And for those of us who are guilty of displacing, it is important to get to a place where you're no longer reacting. Change does not come out of reactions. We cannot emotionally react. We need to respond. We cannot react anymore. We need to respond. And responding is when you are using your intellect, you're using your wisdom, you are consequentially thinking. You're not just reacting like an animal to stimulus, but you are putting thought in it. You're being progressive and productive. The goal is to be responsive over reactive. So displaced anger, dumping that anger on people that are not necessarily a part of the problem. But now we got to go into something else, another idea. Is this writer truly not a part of the problem? And this is where I'm going to invite my guest. This is Councilwoman Valerie Cartwright. Councilwoman, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining this week's Ask Schellie segment. I just kind of got rolling. And I was like, oh, there's someone backstage that I got to bring in. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to my consultation team, I call it, that join me every week here on Facebook and Instagram. So, well, Instagram can't see you, but hopefully they can hear you. Let us know who you are and what it is you do.
Great. Well, first, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be on this segment. My name is Valerie Cartwright. I am a councilwoman in the town of Brookhaven, which is in Eastern Long Island, in New York. I am also a civil rights attorney, and I also am an educator. I teach in a graduate program at one of the local colleges in my area.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we're going to talk about a major undertaking that you are in the process of just, smashing it in. We're going to get there in a second. Today's Ask Schellie segment, I'm not sure if you caught the question, but it is a white woman that wrote in saying, I'm having a hard time interacting and communicating with my angry Black friends. I leave these conversations feeling like I'm being blamed. The language is very emotionally charged. I'm just trying to help. I want to be a part of the solution. So I talked a little bit about the different ways that people cope in general, not just Black people, but humans in general. We tend to avoid, we tend to deny the truth, to keep ourselves in a bubble of whatever's less than real, right? We sometimes channel how extreme emotions through aggression, which includes verbal aggression. Sometimes we channel our extreme emotions by acting, which is a great thing because we need people to be action oriented. I talked about displaced anger, and that is when we have these extreme emotions, we tend to dump them on those who are closest to us. We tend to dump them on people that are the safest. And we sometimes tend to dump it on anything that has similar characteristics to the person or situation that has triggered us to feel that way. And so in this particular case, we're talking about Black anger as it relates to white America. And so however a person perceives what white America looks like, that's another opportunity, unfortunately, where people may be displacing anger. However, displaced anger suggests that the person is innocent in this and doesn't play a part of the problem, which is going to lead me to my next point. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So I feel like if we had a room of 20 self-aware people, which, by the way, there are many people in this entire world that are not self-aware, right? They live in their own denial. They live in their own blind spots. But I would imagine that if we got 20 people, let's say, in a room, 20 of the most self-aware people in this universe in a room, Black, white, Hispanic, just of diverse races, that those who are truly self-aware would be able to share how they have played a part in the problem, because problems are not unilateral, they are systemic. And I think that each and every one of us may be able to identify how we have played a part in the problem, right? Whether it's through our silence, through acceptance, through not using our platforms and our voice, only allowing ourselves to be emotional and proactive after a horrendous act, right? That we can all play a part in that. Because even with quick example, I'm going to let you speak. I have a loved one that works in a shoe store. And my loved one said that on Friday, someone tried to steal a pair of shoes. It was something that they never see in the mall, right? And my loved one said that at the end of the day, when all the supervisors were closing down, that someone said, I can't believe that someone tried to steal a pair of shoes. And on top of that, she was white. On top of that, she was white, as if it was unbelievable, as if white people don't steal. So my question was, or my loved one's question was, what would have been more believable?
If they were Black.
What would have been more believable?
You're absolutely right.
Implicit bias these belief systems and attitudes that we have that we don't want to accept exist. I had to challenge my parents the other day about implicit bias. This idea of, or I had a loved one. I remember my uncle once said that my life would be easier than my sister's because I'm lighter than her. So we have to get to a place where we all are able to identify the implicit biases that we have, recognize how we have played a part in these systemic issues, and be committed to overcoming them. So I want you to talk about just the systemic racism, and can we all identify where we have played a part?
Yes. So I think you hit it right on the nose. The reality of the situation is Black, white, brown, female, male, whatever age range you are, you have played a part. And you talk about it whether it's silence, it's feeding into the stereotypes, whether it's as a joke and you laugh, ha, 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 you're still feeding into the stereotypes and not taking conscious action to be self-aware. We don't realize our own implicit bias. We don't realize our own biases and our prejudice. And it's interesting. We had a training at the town, and they had like different sections, and say if you had to be with a particular group, and there was the note for 5 days, which one would you go to? And there are all these. There would be the transgender group, Blacks, homeless, and you have to pick one, and you having to think through, where do I feel most comfortable? And when you pick your group, you realize that, wow, what are my thoughts about all of these other groups? It's a process that we have to start thinking to ourselves, what are our own issues? So we have to do this on a self-awareness issue, level, but we also have to go beyond that. We have to push our systems, our DA's offices, our police departments, to make sure that they are providing this type of training to their officers, that they're providing it to their prosecutors. Because if they don't know what type of implicit bias they have, they're just going to continue to create the system that continues to create more prejudice, more discrimination, more racism, more inequality. We have to make sure that, so that's when we're out there, we're protesting, we are frustrated, we're angry, we have all of these emotions that we can't control at this point, right? And it's not just the Black people, everyone's stepping up, because white America had a taste of Black America for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Woo!
Okay, and when they tasted Black America, they stepped up and said, I can't believe that this has been happening. Now, what happened if we didn't have iPhones? What would have happened if technology wasn't where we were? We'd still be in the same situation where people are telling us that we're exaggerating. No, it's not that bad. He must have provoked it, whatever the situation. But now everyone felt it because they were able to be there. Now everyone is stepping up, and we are having our voices heard. And it's not only in our states, it's all across the country, it's outside, it's across the world. Other countries are stepping in. I just looked at a video from Montreal in Canada, and it was amazing. Thousands and thousands of people in the streets. Because it doesn't only happen here, it happens everywhere, but everyone is standing up saying enough is enough. So I want to just jump into what you were talking about, Schellie, about the young, I'm assuming you said it was a white young lady
that's correct.
Okay. That's having some concern and is a little stressed out right now because she doesn't know how to have this conversation. So I've had, as an elected official, I'm the only Black elected official in a town of approximately 500,000. Okay. Since 1600s, we have never had a Black elected official until I ran for office. And I'm constantly interfacing with my white colleagues, also constantly interfacing with the majority of my population and my constituency, which is white. And I've developed great relationships across party lines, wonderful people, wonderful heart, who are not always exposed to what we saw, right, on that video. And now they are up in an uproar as well. And they're trying to talk to their friends and their family members and their colleagues. They're taking my advice where I said, white people, talk to your friends and family. We need you to communicate. We can't be the communicator each and every day. And they're coming against a lot of backlash. So one of my girlfriends called me and I said, First thing I said, I said, I feel for you and I appreciate you answering the call to talk to your white friends. But what you're feeling right now is just 1/100th of the weight that's on my shoulders each and every day.
Wow.
So when I'm in the community and I'm around a lot of respected white service members, whether it's firefighters or we're talking about police officers, and we all stand for the pledge, and someone makes a comment about Colin Kaepernick, when you just please stand for the pledge, and it makes me think, do I have to address that as the only Black person in this room? Does that weight fall on me? Where are my allies? Where are the people that truly believe and understand what he was doing, what the message was that he was putting across? And I've been for 7 years. And before that, because I went to West Virginia University for decades, I've been waiting for those other people that don't look like me to step up and say, this is wrong. But we have that now. We have to encourage our white friends to have the difficult conversations. And when they get pushback, they need to keep pushing forward. They need to not let it go and say, this is too hard, because you're in our world now, because it's too hard for us every day, but we can't turn away. We can't turn it off. Wow. So we're asking you not to turn it off as our white friends. We're asking you to step into it, to say, okay, this is what you've been dealing with each and every day. My girlfriend sent me a text and said, she said, I've been so frustrated these past few days, and it's making me think, oh my gosh, is this what you deal with every day? She says, I am happy to take some of the weight off of your shoulders. I will keep fighting. And that's what I want all of you guys to say. And I want you to talk to your friends, and I want them, the white friends, I want them to all say that Black Lives Matter. If they cannot publicly say it, then they're part of the problem.
Wow. Say that again.
Yeah.
Say that again.
If they cannot publicly say that Black Lives Matter, they are part of the problem. When you teach a child what all means, right? It's inclusive, which means it includes Black lives. So all you need to say is Black Lives Matter. It's like if you're suffering from alcoholism, right? The first step is, as a counselor, I'm talking to you, Schellie, you have to admit that I'm an alcoholic, right? You have to say it. So let us go out and push our friends to say Black Lives Matter. That's the first step. Okay. So that's my message to the white people. Now my message to my brothers and sisters, the Black people. This is not the time for you to start saying, white people, educate yourselves. Yes, they need to be educating themselves because they need to be as armed as possible to have conversations. But it's not exclusive of us being there and standing by their side and stepping in when they need us to give a little bit more education. And I think that that's where the problem is. I think we're getting to the point where we're saying, well, we've been dealing with this long enough. You guys can do this. No, they can't do it alone. They need us now. They need, if they're having this conversation and they can't explain what Blacks are going through and what they've suffered in their families and practical experiences, as Black people, we better answer that call. When they call you and say, I need you, Val, I need you to explain to my friend why you feel the way you feel. So we have to, it is not time for us to be silent. And we're not. We're out there, we're marching, but we can't let them fight this fight alone. This is the time that our ancestors, our elders have been waiting for, where everyone is stepping up. I went to a store the other day, and she was a white Republican that was helping me out. And she said, this is not a Republican Democrat issue. This is everyone needs to be standing up. She said, I'm a Republican. She says, and I'll tell you right now, I know if someone had asked me about the police 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, the police are great. Everybody's great. I would have never even thought that something like this could happen. But now they see it. And now they're calling for police reform. So we need to make sure that we're having the conversations, that we're not silencing ourselves, and not just in public, but even in our own circles with our family and our friends. That for Black people, I know it's heavy. It's been heavy for decades. It's been heavy for centuries. But this is the time where we step up even more, because we have people standing behind us. We have people standing on the sides of us. We have people standing in front of us, working with us. And this is the time that we're going to make real change.
This is so awesome. Valerie, Councilwoman Cartwright, excuse me. You said something. I don't know if you were quoting someone else, but I quote you all the time on my lives. You sent something to me, and this was about how we can play a part in the action part of this, right? And being action oriented. I have one more point that I'd like you to speak on after this one. And you sent something to me. I don't even know if you remember sending it, but at the end of your response to me, you said, if we are not on the agenda, we will be on the menu. If we are not on the agenda, we will be on the menu. And basically, you were speaking to the importance of us being a part of the policy making process, to really be in places of power and influence, to work against the legislation that has got us here. So what would you say to people that are saying that, how do we do that? Where do we start? This idea of getting on the agenda, in to make sure that we're not on the menu, right? If we're not on the agenda, you'll be eaten up. That's basically what that means. What are your suggestions? Where do people start to find out how they can start the process of really assuring that they get a seat at the table?
First, figure out who your elected officials are. Who are you? If you can't tell me who your council person is, who your state senator is, who your county legislator is, who your congressman is, there's a problem. We're starting there, because you need to know who it is that's legislating and representing you each and every day. Secondly, you have to exercise your right to vote on a school board level, on a local level, on a state level, and on a federal level. And if there are primaries, you need to be out there. If you don't vote 4 or 5 times a year, there's a problem. Okay. We have lost lives for the right to vote. We need to exercise that every opportunity that we get. And then we cannot complain. You can do whatever you want, but your complaints really mean nothing, to be quite honest, if you're not exercising your right to vote. Because the way we speak out against the injustice is to say, if you're not on my side, and if you're not supporting me, and you're not advocating for the right things that benefit me, you're going to be voted out of office. So there is power in the vote, and we need to recognize that. So we need to talk to our people and let them know that they should be voting. If you're voting, it's not enough to say, well, I vote in my house. Well, what about your 10 friends and their 10 houses? We are influencers. We need to exercise that influence. Juries. We're always upset because when there's a rogue police officer that kills one of our people, right? We want them to be indicted. We want them to be punished. You know who makes that decision? The people who sit on the jury. So when you dodge jury call, you are playing into the injustice of the system. Okay? I have selected juries as a trial attorney, and I can tell you half the time who's going to raise their hand and say, I can't do it because. Okay? Now, yes, we may not have the resources and the support system at times to be able to stay on a jury, right? Because you may not have the money coming in, you need to continue working. I understand that. But understand, for those that don't have that issue, you should not be trying to come up with any excuse to come off of a jury. And for those, even if you do have that issue, you need to try to work it out, because we need our faces on the jury. And when I am representing a Black plaintiff or criminal defendant, and I'm in the courtroom and I have to pick a jury and I can't get any Black jurors on my jury, we've lost before we even started the trial.
Come on.
So recognize our own importance in making sure that we are playing the part that we need to. Last point, figure out what legislation needs to be passed within the community. If you know, for example, we for the past week or so, everyone across our country has stepped up and said enough is enough, change has to happen now. The Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian caucus in New York State put forward a few days later a full, comprehensive legislative package dealing with repealing of what we call the New York Civil Rights 50A, which basically protects officers from certain types of disclosure. So if there's an internal affairs report that speaks to the complaints that have come against the police officer, that's sealed. Basically, it can't come out. Nobody knows. If there have been 10 complaints against the same officer, it's all shielded by this law. The community, the public does not know. So we're looking to repeal that. We're looking to make sure that chokeholds are banned. not just in the policies of the police departments, but by state law, legislated. We're looking to make sure that we have body cams, we have car cams on every police car, on every police officer. And I'm going to go a step further. Just because you tell them that they have to have the body cams, let's make sure that they keep them on, that they turn them on when they're supposed to, that they don't turn them on, and if they don't, that they're punished, that there's discipline related to it. So these are just a few of the things that we are false 911 calls. All of these things are part of this comprehensive package. So what did I do? I said, okay, we're out there thousands at a time. We're making sure that our voice is heard. What is the next step of action? I handed out a piece of paper with every piece of legislation on there. Turn it around. All of the New York State senators and their phone numbers. Call them, put the pressure on them, hold them to task, make sure that they vote and actually implement change. You cannot wait until next week or 2 weeks from now or next year. Get what you can pass now and keep fighting for more legislation. Everything that affects us comes from statutes, comes from legislation, and we need to hold our local elected officials accountable, but you can't hold them accountable if you don't know who they are.
That's right. Oh, this is so good. Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's so much that I want to peel into. We're already at 12:47. I want to, you said something that was really important earlier. You said that it is, and those, my Instagram family, I am so sorry. I will try to persuade Councilwoman Cartwright to go live with me on Instagram. I hope you can hear her voice and her powerful statements. You talked about it not be that this is not the time for us to say, well, it's not my job to educate the white people, right? And we're hearing that a lot. We're also hearing that it's not my job to make the white people feel comfortable and things of that nature. And I love, the other day I watched you, I think it was on a Zoom call, I'm not sure, you said the word courageous conversation. I love that. I've been just, really holding people accountable to have those courageous conversations, not aggressive, not insulting, not offensive, but those courageous conversations. Going back to your statement that this is really not the time for us to say, it's not my role to educate anyone. What are you saying about the block party? Let me explain to you what the block party is. The block party is the people who have taken time out of their schedule, that have sat there and defriended everybody that had an attitude or a response that was contrary to what they believe, those individuals who are staying silent, defriending those who have not responded the way that we have accepted. And I call it the block party. I heard the other day, I was actually on a YouTube show, and a gentleman made a comment like, we need to stop blocking these folks. We need to make sure that they still have access to what it is we are saying. While other people felt like, no, I don't want people to have access to my life if they are not speaking out or being part of the solution. They're not standing by, they're not saying anything. I don't want them to be in my circle. So while that's an individual decision, what are your thoughts on the block party?
So first, for those of us that are parents, right, we understand that you can talk to your kids over and over again, right? And it's like they're not listening, right? I know, I was that kid. My mother's like, are you ever going to listen to what I'm saying? And then by the time I hit like 20 and I was, coming out of college, I started doing things just like my mom. I started repeating the same things. You know why I was repeating it? Because I kept hearing it. Even though at the time she was telling me, I was like, to be quite honest, I was like, go kick rocks. I'm not interested in that. But it came to a point where it was said so many times that I had to start thinking and processing, like, is she right? So we have to keep saying it. Yes, there are going to be those that are never going to come over. That's fine. They're going to be on the wrong side of history. They'll always be on the wrong side of history because they're not thinking clearly. They are just being antagonists. They are zealots on the other side. That's fine, but that's not a big percentage. There are those that are undecided or they don't understand. They're not exposed. Exposure is key. If they're not exposed to the lives of Black people, to Black America, you're never going to get them to understand. So no, defriending them is not the answer, in my opinion, because putting them in a situation where you know what you're doing? You're not holding them accountable. So interestingly enough, this whole thing about the New York State legislature, where I told you that we were pushing for our electeds to make a difference. So the focus has been, we have 6 Long Island State Long Island State senators that are Democratic, and we have been pushing them to vote for this legislation. So, and I was looking at some of the tweets that went out. I said, why are you guys only mentioning the Democratic senators? What happened to the Republican senators? You know, hold them accountable. Tell them not to vote with their bloc. So on my paper, I added the Republican senators because you don't give them a pass. So we don't give the people that are being rude a pass. So no, don't block them. You keep talking to them and you keep doing it, because guess what? We may not hit them, but we might actually hit those other people, the kids, right? Because a lot of those kids are watching what their mommy's doing, what their daddy's doing. A lot of those kids are getting to a point where they're saying, you know what? I don't like the way my dad or my mom is treating other people. I want to be different. And they're going to go to the extreme, but you need to make sure they have access to that information. We have to continue to provide them access to the information. It is not enough to say, it's not my job, I'm tired, that they're not saying what I want to say. Let me say this. We are resilient people. We are resilient people, right? So we've been dealing with the stress and the weight on our shoulders for so long. It comes second nature to us. Intersectionality is second nature to us. To white people, it's not. So they're stepping up and they're uncomfortable and they don't know how to handle these courageous conversations. And guess what? They're going to stumble. They're going to fall over their own words. They're going to say things to us that are offensive. And we as Black people have to give them a little bit of latitude. You have to give them the latitude because they're trying, right? And yes, people are going to say trying's not enough. Listen, we're asking them to speak out. They may not know how to speak out. So we need to help them along the way. So we cannot say it's not my job to educate. We cannot say you guys do this on your own. We need to make sure that we're doing this together. We talk about solidarity and unity. This is the time to show the world what solidarity and unity really means.
This is so awesome. All those who are tuning in, share, share, share. We need to make sure that this live falls within the line of sight and ear gates of those who need to hear it. We've talked about extreme emotion. We talked about coping styles. We talked about displaced anger. We talked about implicit bias. We talked about how to become a part of the answer, talked about the importance of knowing your representatives and knowing and getting involved in local government. We talked about the importance of understanding that we play a role in educating our county. This has been so good. And you're going to kill me, Valerie, because I know that this is not something you're not on here to do this, but you have taken on a huge undertaking as a Haitian American woman. You are currently running for New York State Senate. Is that correct?
I am.
So I know that there is a way that people can support you in doing that. And I don't know if there is a link, if there is something that I can post so people can support you in that. Tell us a little bit about your experience and why you even chose to run for New York State Senate seat.
Thank you. Well, let me start off with why I chose to run at all, right? 2013, I was asked by a former county legislator who is of Hispanic descent to run for office. At that time, I was suing governments. You know, I was a civil rights attorney. I was trying to hold them to task, hold them accountable. And I said, I'm doing my part. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm good here. And she saw a need in the community. She saw a place for my advocacy through being a legislator. And she said, I see it in you. I know you don't see it in yourself, but you need to step into this world. You need to run for office. And I prayed on it because I said no like 3-4 times. And then I prayed on it and I said, you know what? It's not my place to determine what I'm going to do to affect change. It's what God is putting on my heart and God is placing in my path. So I prayed on it and the answer was very clear that I needed to step into this. And everything that happened from that point forward has been success in getting the community engaged, making sure that we are delivering for our community, creating different levels of access that weren't there before on governmental levels. And I've done that on a local level as the only Democrat on a town board of 7. I've done it, and I've done it effectively. My local state senator has been in office for 44 years. That's my entire lifetime. 44 years.
Wow.
The university stadium has his name on it. He was basically unbeatable. He decided that he was going to retire and not run for re-election. And after I won my 4th election and I heard this, I jumped in the race, because it's not about being a local elected official and saying, well, I've done a lot and I'm good. It's about how much more can I do? And when we now have turned the table on the state Senate from red to blue, we need to keep it that way. We have pushed forth progressive legislation for the first time in decades last year. So in the past year and a half or so. So we need to make sure that that continues. Our federal government is failing us. Okay, our federal government is failing us, and it is the state's responsibility to step in. That's my position. And what I want to do is make sure that we come in and as local elected officials, someone who has experience like me legislating, someone who has experience advocating as a civil rights attorney, someone who understands the importance of educating our community on legislation before it's passed. All of that, I'm stepping in to run for state Senate because I know that I can help New York go over to the next level. So I am running for New York State Senate. When I win, I will be the first Haitian senator in the state of New York. So I am looking forward to celebrating in November, but first I have to celebrate in June. I have a primary. It is a 5-way Democratic primary. It is a tough primary. A lot of good candidates. Everybody comes from a different perspective. You know, people are qualified. They're coming out. Of course, my position is I am the most qualified and the best for this seat. And I just need people to hear my voice and see it. And I need as much support as possible. So we're talking about making phone calls for me. We're talking about donating money because unfortunately, money basically controls how many people hear your message. We need to take the money out of politics. We need campaign finance reform. We need all of this. And we can do a lot of this on a state level. And that's what I'm looking to do. So if you really want to make a difference, you need to make sure you get the right people in office that are going to legislate to protect your rights, to make sure that there's equity, that there's justice, that there's, and accountability for those that violate your rights, that violate what we are supposed to, what we stand on. We say the pledge each and every time. We walk into a room and open up a session. You sit there and you talk about how important it is, for liberty and justice for all, and it's not happening. It's not happening. So you need legislators that are going to fight for you in office. And I'm running for New York State Senate out here in New York on Eastern Long Island, Senate District 1. So if you are interested in supporting me, you can go to my website, www.cartwright2020.com. That's www.cartwright2020.com. There's no W in my last name. And you can find out more about my platform, and you can also see that there's a link to donate and support or volunteer however you can.
I'm going to do that again, www.cartwright2020.com.
And I see Bree saying, I can't stay silent now. That's right. And you know what, Bree? We need to make sure that our friends, our kids, I created a youth speak out. It was unfettered. I said, come on. I want all my youth to come out virtually. Tell me how you feel. You don't have to. It's uncensored. You can curse. You can do whatever. This is not the time for me to say this is how you should be expressing yourself. I just want you to express it. And I want you to put the anger out in a positive way rather than bottling it up and then going out and getting ourselves in trouble or doing whatever we shouldn't be doing. We have to make sure, as Schellie said before, we channel our emotions. Let's channel it for real change. That's what we need to be doing.
That's so good. Wow. This is so amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to just go through some comments here. Let's see. All right, says, yeah, this is Tiffany. Thank you so much for tuning in, Tiffany. She says, yes, we need understanding on both sides. I'm trying to learn as much as possible to have a good narrative when talking to my other white friends. I cannot stay silent. Awesome. We have Bree. She's saying, I can't stay silent now. That's for all of us. We need to open our mouths. The worst thing that you can do is say nothing. Jordan Roberts, he's saying exposure is key.
That's right.
Yes. Then we have another fellow attorney, and she says, jury duty is so important. Can't be a jury of your peers if your peers aren't coming in.
Amen, Danny.
So awesome. I want to thank you for taking the time out of, and I know that I can't imagine what you are doing right now as you prepare for the primaries in New York, which is what date again?
June 23rd.
June 23rd. And we definitely have you in our thoughts and our prayers. I will share this link. I encourage for those of you who are on to also share the link. What would you say to someone that says, well, she's in New York. How does that help me?
It helps because when New York is a pioneer in creating certain legislation that's protecting our people, other states are looking. You know, New York and California are the two states that are always at the front line of making decisions that protect our community and basically, I'll say, bucking the system to some degree. So we need to make sure that New York leads, so that way we can tell all of your states, we can tell Florida, a lot of work to do there, but we can tell Florida that you need to follow in these footsteps. And let me just say something to all of you who might have think to yourself, you know, I'm a teacher, or I'm in a different industry. I don't understand how it intersects with politics, but I want to help, or I have a thought of possibly running for office, or I've been asked. Explore it. Don't think to yourself because you're in a particular industry. People have changed their careers, you know, at 45, 50, 55 because of this fire inside of them that has come. There's a fire inside of a lot of people now. And if that fire is telling you, I need to run for office, then you know what? Jump in. You know, of course, follow the steps. Find out which political party that you want to align yourself with. Talk to them. Say, you know, help me, groom me so I can get in and do the right thing. Or support an elected official in your area. You don't have to run for office. I have people who are always in the background. They're like, I'll never run for office. But they are powerful people in the background. But find your niche. Find where you can play a role in the political systems, in advocating for those elected that you believe in. You know, you can do it from Florida to New York, but you can do it from Florida to Florida. You know, don't automatically, I'd love for your support, please. However you can support me, send me some money. Aside from that, you need to know what's happening in your own backyard. You need to find those elected officials that stand for what you stand for in your backyard and step in. Even if you've never made a phone call before, if you've never knocked on the door, you've never done any campaigning, it is not too late. This is the time to start and rally behind those electeds, because those electeds are the ones that they're stepping up. They're having the courageous conversations. They are putting themselves at risk, right? For the people to say, this is what I believe in. They need to know that when they turn around, they have support. They need to know that their crew, if you want to say it, is with them all day, every day. So that's what we need to make sure that we're doing. Support your local electeds that believe in what you believe in.
This is so good. I want to thank you again. I could have you on for another 3 hours, but I don't want to take away from your campaign efforts. Clayton,
I need to win. Yes, but no. I always have time. I always have time for this.
Yes, and clearly you are operating from passion. This was not rehearsed, people. Like, this was not this is passion. It's organic, it's authentic, and these are the people that we need representing us at that table that we talked about earlier. Remember, we talked about getting a seat at the table, making sure we are on the agenda. People like Valerie Cartwright gets us on the agenda. Clayton says, it's becoming irritating navigating the white gaze. It's not my job to educate them on systems they built. And we respect your comment. We respect your take on it. I know a lot of people have felt very irritated by this push to educate. So we totally understand how you feel. We thank you.
Can I just jump in really quickly on that to Clayton's comment?
Sure.
I know they built it, right? The system is fundamentally flawed. But not all white people understand that they have privilege. They don't. I'm just, it's like when you explain to them their privilege by nature, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. So it's important for us to shine that light. We have to show them that this system was created like this. It was designed like this. It didn't just happen. And they're not going to teach each other, right? Maybe now we have people who are stepping up that are really like, they're educating themselves. But those of us that do have the knowledge, let's make it one step easier for them. Give them the knowledge. Let them know how it was created. Let them know when it started, that it didn't start with George Floyd. You know what I mean? Talk about, Jamestown. Talk about all that. Break it down for them. Go all the way back so they understand what's going on. And I know it's exhausting and I know it's irritating. I have to hold my tongue to some degree to say, do I want to put this on record or do I just want to wait till we close out so I can have this conversation? But I have to have the conversation. So it's time for us to re-energize the batteries on our backs, as irritating as it is, and keep fighting and making sure that we are creating that network. Next person, teach one, each one teach one. And that's what we need to be doing.
Each one teach one. Again, I want to thank not only you, Valerie, for tuning in, but all those who came onto this live today. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your support, and we appreciate your share. Click that share button. Let's allow this message to be heard by many, many more than yourself. I was listening to Meghan Markle today, and she made a comment. I'm trying to think. Let me see if I put it in my notes. When these things happen, I like to I have a whole note full of prophetic downloads and quotes that I hear. And she says that when she was a sophomore in high school, a teacher said to her, always put the needs of others over your own fears. Always put the needs of others over your own fears. Let's be courageous in this time. Your ideas and your ideas matter. Your ideas are priceless and valuable. Your input, your skills, your gifts, your abilities are all priceless. Let's all click the action button. All right, let's click that action button. Make sure that we are being a part of the answer. Thank you so much again for tuning into this week's Ask Schellie segment. Make sure to go to www.cartwright2020.com. That's www.cartwright2020.com. Let us support her as she is making the commitment to represent us on a very, very high level. Thank you again, Valerie, Councilwoman Cartwright, for coming on today. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. I will see you guys next week at 12 right here live.
Thank you.